Perfect. Gary, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you had quite a bit of a journey to come here, so I do really appreciate it. I appreciate yourself and Nikki coming down.
No problem. I'm on my holidays in Cambridge.
Do you like Cambridge?
I love it so far. I mean, I've only seen the train station, but it's not. I'm so used to travelling. We travel all the time, so
yeah. You lot tend to be everywhere, so no, I appreciate you coming down. I hope you like our academy as well.
The academy is mega. I mean, to be honest, not that I ever doubted you, mate.
You doubted me.
I am impressed. I was expecting a humble academy or nice academy, but it's brilliant.
No, I appreciate it. It's something we've worked on over the last few years. So we're happy with how it's grown, and everyone who comes here seems to enjoy it. So thank you as well.
Really,
thanks for underestimating
really
me.
Professional, nice, love the decor. Everybody, listen, it's always good to undersell and over-deliver. People. Yeah, that's the one, isn't it?
Undersell, over-deliver. I love it. One of my main focal points today, Gary, that I wanted to find out, because you've become a really, really successful influencer and idol, would you say, or you know what I mean, in the barbering industry. I wanted to know what the barbering industry was like through your eyes, because have you cut hair before? Were you a barber before?
I started cutting hair in 1986.
Really?
Yeah, 1986, left school, went on a training scheme as they were then.
Yeah.
And
was that college or?
I went through a training provider like you've got here. I worked for a company called Headlines. I was a hairdresser.
Okay.
So we were at Headlines. I did my training there, and then went on to live in America.
Really? I didn't know that.
Came back from America, went into partnership with a guy that had a product company called Paul Mitchell.
I know Paul Mitchell, yeah.
Paul Mitchell. I was running the salons. We had a couple of salons. And then I went on to, by the time I was about 32, I had 5 salons in Liverpool.
Really?
And Southport, where I live.
Have you still got them now, or?
Well, eventually, after having them for so many years, I fell out of love with it.
Yeah.
I still love the creative side of it, but I found myself being so bogged down with all the business.
Yeah.
I think we all sort of go through peaks and troughs, and I'd done it for sort of 20 odd years, and about 9 years ago, I decided to get rid of several of my shops. I ended up retaining one.
Oh, fantastic.
And then I started the Barber Bash about 7 years ago. It was like a little idea that came to me.
Because I was going to ask you, how did the idea of the Barber Bash come about? Because there's not a lot of people who do it what you do, and to do it to the scale that you do.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I went through this period where I'd had sort of 30, 40 staff work for me in hairdressing.
Fucking hell.
I'd previously worked in a barbershop as well before that all started.
Yeah.
But when I went to hairdressing, we had like 30, 40 staff working for us, got bogged down with it all, decided to get rid of it. But I'd always done show work and events. So I'd done bits of stuff for Tony and Guy back in the day. And I'd been involved with competitions and colour companies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I looked at barbering, and I loved where barbering was going with the precision and the attention to detail.
Because it's changed quite massively over the last few years. Like, it went from being traditional to being very, very precise.
Well, I come from an era, especially in the 90s and the 80s, where if you wanted a really cool haircut, you'd go to a hairdresser.
Yeah.
So men's hairdressing, men's barbering, if you like, was seen as not as professional, if you like, as the hairdressers were. No, I think that's totally changed now.
Why do you think it was like that before? And what do you think's made it change?
I think barbers were seen as a practical service.
Yeah.
So you'd go in to have that hair taken off your ears, taken off your collar, bank managers, school teachers, that square neckline. Yeah. And it was a guy just needed a haircut. When he wanted a style, back in the 80s and 90s, he would go to the hairdresser for the style, you know?
Because, do you know what, saying that, when I was younger in the early 2000s, if I wanted a style, I'd actually, my mum would take me to a hairdresser because the barbers couldn't do it. They were still quite traditional. I think this is back in the day before the 0.5 guards were around.
Of course. And also, you'd go to barbers, and listen, we're not saying they're all the same, but back in those days, a lot of barbers didn't wash hair. So people you're not able to style people's hair unless somebody's got clean hair. So like nowadays, when you see these guys and they've got really sort of progressive haircuts, it all has to go hand in hand with maybe the product they're using, the fact that they're sort of washing
the hair. Yeah, perfect. No, I respect that. And is this where you started to take your perspective away from hairdressing into barbering and create the Barber Bash?
I mean, with hairdressing at that time, in the 1890s, precision haircuts were in Sassoon, and there's very short styles for females. Then hairdressing went into the straighteners came in, and then all those beautiful blow dries came in. Now then barbering became more professional, and all of a sudden we started seeing these brilliant fades coming in. And what we decided to do was start doing a lot of education around the country and into Europe, and sort of try and push the standards of it.
And was this event-based? Because I know you run like workshops and people's salons and barbershops as well. Did this start off like that, or did it start off event-based?
What actually happened was I would always go to the big shows, and I would go into, and in fact, one that really sort of hit home to me, I went to one in Manchester called Pro Hair Live.
Okay.
And you had all these hairdressing stuff, and then in the back of the room was a guy, I won't say it was, but one guy, and he had about, it was just dull and boring, and it was in a venue with pink carpet, and you had these plastic cups of coffee and plasticky sandwiches. I thought, this doesn't fit what barbering is. Barbering had started to be, the tattoo vibe was coming in about sort of 7-8 years ago. People with piercings and cool guys.
Yeah, it was a bit more trendy.
They go into a hairdressing show with pink carpet and some guy in a 3-piece suit with a microphone. That doesn't fit, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I just looked at it and thought, this can be so much more.
So much more.
I wanted to bring it an event that suited the people who wanted to attend the event.
And do you know what? I think in terms of what you wanted to do, you've hit the nail on the head. And one of my questions on that would be is, has it always been what it is today? And how have you scaled it to what it is today as well? Right,
well, to tell you, one of my favourite things, one thing I say, it's like Netflix started out with selling DVDs.
Yeah, of course,
Netflix is now. Yeah. Things don't just happen overnight and it all of a sudden is this glittering thing. You know, this
division can change.
Yeah, so the first show we did was awful. But we sold it out and people enjoyed it. But when I look at it now, I think to myself, oh, crikey, you know, we did it in Southport, which was where I live, and we did it in a hotel, funnily enough, where I had my wedding reception, and they gave us the room for nothing on I think it was a Monday night, and we got 250 people in there. We had Alan Beak, we had Danny Robinson.
So you had some good names there as well.
And we were on this stage. The sound guy told me he was great and he could do the sound. He was awful. So the microphones were all echoey. So that was the start of it. That was the start of it. And we sold it out anyway. But we couldn't really afford to do much more. We couldn't afford like this big sort of classy venues.
Like you do now, obviously.
Yeah, and then what happened then from there, we went on to do something in Glasgow. And again, with the Barber Bash, what we wanted to do was, instead of everything being London-centric, we wanted to go to Ireland, we wanted to go to Glasgow, all these places where there's really cool people who were, in my opinion, I thought, well, they're not getting the ability to go and see these great shows. So we went to a place called Drygate in Glasgow.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And it's a cool brewery, kind of microbrewery place. And that was the first one where I really started to get more what we wanted to do.
Cool. Was there ever a point where you were thinking, because like I say, it's for me, it's one of the biggest barbering shows, events that happen in the UK. Like every barber knows about Great British Barber Bash. Did it ever come to a point where you thought, I don't know if this will actually work?
Oh yeah, definitely. And again, a bit of advice for everybody. You always go through every single show we do. I have a panic about 4 weeks before, thinking, are we going to sell the tickets on this one?
And they're always packed. They always seem to be packed.
You find that with most ideas, though, even when you do an academy like you've done, you'll go through that excitement of decorating it all, getting it all done, buying the chairs. So that's the excitement. And you will always go through this sort of little
down period.
Oh, I'm doing this right. But I think when the sound was packing in Southport when we first did it, you think, oh no, what have I done here? And there's been things that happened. I mean, loads of stories. Like I did one in Amsterdam, and I had about £4,000 to pay the guy for the venue, and I left the money in the airport and thought, shit, where's the money? You know, and I left this bag with £4,000, and luckily I went back 20 minutes later
and it was still there.
So there's been loads of
that would have got burnt as well.
Yeah, cock-ups like that along the way, and venues sort of. We had screens at a venue in Scotland once, and the camera all broke. So you're going to have hurdles along the way, but that's the same with a barbershop or an academy or a show, you know?
Yeah, we get it as well, because how we actually started running 3-4 week crash courses.
Yeah.
And I think we were running them for about 4 to 6 months.
Yes.
And we had so much interest, but because it was free, there wasn't a commitment, and a lot of people would never show up.
Right.
So we're trying to sell the 8 weeks course off the back of that. And it got to a point where before it managed to get to where we are now, it was like, is it worth it? Will it actually work? Like the market's not really giving us feedback, etc. And for us, do you know what? I think lockdown done us wonders, because we took all our advertising online, and there was a lot of people who wanted to start cutting hair, and we scaled massively. But I can completely relate to that, because when we first started, our crash courses were appalling.
Yeah, and you've got to sort of realise it's always growing and evolving. Yeah. That's the hair industry should be like that. You should constantly be changing. Anything that is new today is old tomorrow. That's one of our sayings. And again, I'm a big Liverpool football fan, and I always remember the story about when they'd win the European Cup, and the next morning they were talking about how they're going to win it the next year again. So for me, when I do a show...
You have to do a different strategy.
Well, I do a show, like we just did Liverpool. We had Josh LaMonica on stage, we had Dino Anthony, we had some fantastic barbers, and we had 700 people bought tickets to it, and it was really good. I must say it was one that I was actually really quite happy with. But straight away I'm thinking we've got Glasgow in February, so we've got a new venue called BAD, B-A-A-D, which is a really cool venue.
Okay, so that's not the same as last year,
we try and change the venue again, so we always like it to be a bit quirky and different. So this is like an old tram shed. It's a big glass dome. It's got all those fantastic screens behind the stage. But again, it'll just be different. So again, it's a different sort of flavour. But we're now like focusing on what we're going to do. We're going to maybe change the barber battles that we do. We're going to have different categories. Different lineups, because again, with us, we never wanted to just have those same faces on. Because we want to give new people opportunities, you know.
That's what I really like about Great British Barber Bash, because the reason I started cutting hair, I'm obviously from Ireland originally, but I started cutting hair because one of my mates, Connor Taff, and Leah Hayden Cassidy, they started cutting hair, and then I seen them going to these events. I was like, what event is that?
What is that?
Because I wasn't a barber at the time. And then I've seen them go to Malta and Amsterdam and all these other places, and growing. And I was like, that's what I want to do as well. So what I really like about what you do is, because you don't keep it the same people, you've given so many barbers opportunities, like Alan Beak, Hayden, Dino.
Hayden, who I love, and she's done fantastic. She's now Andis Global Educator. She came to Cut and Sew to a demonstration by Alan Beak, which I put on.
Really?
And she paid for herself. Shawnee Bryan, who has Cut and Sew type, didn't pay. But she paid, and she did the course. So I love that. For me, that's a massive success story, because
I was her first haircut at Cut and Sew.
Right. So she's attended a course, and next minute she's travelling around America and Indonesia and places like that, which is fantastic. Again, you know, what we try and do is not have the same faces on the stage. It's like a closed door for new people, and it shouldn't be like that. And
then I suppose it just brings more engagement and more interest from other barbers, because they know you're so helpful in terms of, okay, you want to be here, but I can take you to this place. I think that's the beauty of the Great British Barber Bash, because it just accommodates for absolutely everyone who wants to go down that route.
It can be difficult sometimes, because because say you've got 15 lads who have been on the stage, and Hayden and Jen Winters and whatever, and then you're now doing the next show. You can't keep everybody happy. And so that is one of the problems. Well, you can't, you know, because we've got, so the last show we did, we had BK Barber, who's a nice lad from Wales. So he's been coming to our show for quite a few years. His work's fantastic, so I wanted to give him a chance.
He's a lovely lad as well.
Somebody else has got to drop off, haven't they? And then we had another great guy, and I think if you're not following him, George Knight, who's a really really fashionable, really sort of on trend guy. He's from Bristol.
Okay.
So we gave him a chance. So again, you're going to have to say to the guy who was on last show, well, I'm not going to have you on this time on the main stage. So it is a bit of a juggling act.
Well, I suppose you have to, and that's just a part of being of business and keeping all your people happy as well. I thought I haven't been to a bar bashing for a couple of years. I do apologise.
Well, listen, you had that restraining order, didn't you?
I did.
50 phone calls that night, mate, was just too much.
Sorry. No, I think with us, what we were doing, we were so disciplined, and we were literally working 8 days a week.
Look at what you've got to have. It's brilliant.
I appreciate it. I think there was times we were coming in at like 7 o'clock in the morning and leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Well, again, it's like me. I mean, I get invited to loads of things like the Hairdresser of the Year Awards was on the other night.
Yeah.
Somebody offered me 2 tickets. You've got to say no sometimes because I knew I had other commitments. We were in Belfast this weekend with our workshop, and then I wanted to come and see you here today.
I appreciate it.
You can't do everything. You've got to, again, you've got to prioritise.
And I think once you have your foundation built, you can then start to go off and do what you like again, sort of thing.
And again, sometimes I've seen along my journey where people are too engrossed in Instagram and too engrossed in going to shows like mine, and you've got to pay the mortgage, so you've got to make sure you're putting the money in the till.
Exactly.
And that's the most important thing, really, isn't it?
Exactly. And then everything else is after. Can I make time for that?
It'll fall in.
I absolutely love Great British Barber Bash. For me, because your event was what started me off, because I started in the Dublin show in the Button Factory.
Yes, brilliant.
I started on the floor, and then I think the next show you had me up on stage. I think one guy pulled out and you were like, right, get up there. I was like, I haven't even got a model for it.
We've had some great people on stage. I mean, people like, as I say, you had Dino Anthony on your podcast. He's a fantastic barber. MJ Langley you've had on recently. As you say, Hayden, we love.
I think she's due to come on at some stage as well.
Alan Beatt's a great guy. Ollie Foster's just been made the Osmo ambassador. He's a great educator.
I want to get Ollie on at some stage as well.
We'll get Ollie on. Mickey Graham from Northern Ireland.
I've never met Mickey, but I'd love to have him on.
Barber. So it's just good. And do you know what, as well, I really enjoy it. I think for me, I love doing it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that sort of is something that, it's not, we have to make money.
Yeah, of course. Everything's a business at the end of the day, by the money.
I don't want the next gold BMW or the next Range Rover. I'm not bothered about that.
Yeah.
I get more pride out of the show being really good.
And
that gives me a buzz,
Do you know what? For me, because I started cutting hair about 7 years ago, I think, 7 years ago. But I was just backstreet traditional barber, no precision, nothing like that. Like 2 back and sides done in 10 minutes sort of thing. And then I came to an event, Connor Taff, he invited me. I came to his event, he stayed with me that time, and I came to Great British Barber Bash, and that just opened a different world for me.
Yes.
Like that ignited, because I was cutting hair like 4 years, and that just ignited a different fire inside me, like, right, that's what I want to do. How can I learn the precision techniques if I have to go on courses, because I need to get up on that stage and get onto the Barber Bash stage with yourself. I think what the Barber Bash does is, for individuals who are like myself then, and just people coming into the industry, it really does open your eyes to different avenues.
So people will say, oh, well, is it education? Well, it is educational in one way, but what it'll do is you'll be buzzing going to the show. You'll go to the show, and where the actual sort of magic happens is that car journey on the way home, where you're saying, I'm going to do that, I'm going to get involved with that, or I want to do what Ryan Cullen did on stage. And so it's the inspiration, and what it is, a lot of barbers work really hard all week. You're doing tons of cuts and you're putting the money in the till, you're paying for your car, you're paying for your mortgage, whatever.
You can tend to lose the passion slightly.
You need to keep the passion up. So if 25 quid or 30 quid, whatever the ticket is, I don't even know, if you go to 2 Barber Bashes or 3 Barber Bashes a year, it's just that little bit of an injection of motivation, isn't it?
Exactly. And the good thing I like about what you do as well, because in between your events, you run courses in other people's salons as well. And it's a good eye-opener to see that there is further education, because a lot of individuals will come to Barber Bash and then do your education after as well, which is phenomenal. But it just opens your eyes. Okay, cool, I can go there with Gary and Ollie and what was...
and Mickey,
yeah. And I can learn all this sort of stuff with them, and then it will better me, so I can come back next year and be like, Gary, get me on that stage.
I mean, we always sort of say, like, you know, we are in such a lucky industry in that constantly evolving, it's social, you know, like, would you ever imagine somebody's like a plumber going on a plumbing course on a weekend, paying 200 quid to go on a course and going, oh, the way you're bending them pipes is fantastic. Whereas like with what we do, we all can sit around in a room, get funky in a room together and watch these fantastic haircuts, and we have a great crack together, don't we?
Oh, mate, I love it. And it's a good social as well. It's a really good social.
No, I'm not new at plumbers, by the way.
Oh, no, plumbing's a good
I like a good plumber.
I do like a good plumber as well. Snake your drains.
Yeah.
Because the one thing as well, because you've got a lot of partnerships with like Jameson and stuff like that. One question I had for you was, because you started with doing your events that you weren't obviously happy with, to taking you to where you are now. What does the Barber Bash look like in the future?
Well, to be honest with you, at one time, so you're always thinking different things. We thought about going bigger in a way. Bigger, sorry, what?
It's all right.
Hello. You know what? I don't think it wants to be bigger. I think it wants to still keep that sort of cosy club-like thing. 500, 600, 700 people. I think if you start getting these big event spaces, like a lot of the hair shows are, that works then. That's great, don't be wrong, not knocking them at all. But we're not an expo. I want everything to be focused on
close-knit and education.
And then there being maybe 10 or 15 exhibits, so you can buy your scissors there, you can buy your clippers, you can buy your clothes.
I suppose you can run it more often as well, because Salons International, that's a 1 year thing, but that's got everyone there, everything.
Yeah, I want us to do, we've got Manchester probably next year, we've got London definitely, we've got Liverpool, Birmingham is somewhere I want to do, and what I want to really encourage is to build it. We're now doing probably the biggest barber battle in Europe. We had 70 people in the London one. And was that the London before? I can't remember. Before lockdown, we had 70 people in the bar battle.
I remember that. when I was at that one. It was Ramo. Absolute Ramo.
I want to grow that because the atmosphere and the energy is fantastic. And I just want to encourage that sort of develop as a little entity on its own almost. Maybe bringing in a pattern competition as well. So it's just evolving and growing, and I think we'll definitely go back to Ireland.
Ireland was a very good show. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Ireland's a great place. I love it, and there's a lot of talent in Ireland. You've got your Ryan Cullen, your Mickeys, you've got Neil Toner at JFH. You've got a load of great barbers out in Ireland.
There's a lot of undiscovered talent as well. Like one of my mates, Dean Kenny, me, Leah, Connor Taff, we all used to dance together as well. And he's a fantastic barber, and his following isn't massive, but I can definitely see him being someone who would come to an event like yours.
So it's people like that I want to encourage. So when we did the Liverpool show a few weeks ago, we had 16 barbers on stage. Climax was Josh Lamont, did a fantastic
the Climax.
Did a great presentation, but we had 70 barbers around the room were cutting. So it's people like that, Dean, and people like... There's another guy in Ireland as well, Kelly Cuts. I don't know him.
Cuts, I don't know.
And he is a talented guy that I've been looking at. He's fantastic. But it's all these people, to be honest with you. The standard is so high across the globe. You know, like the standard... I mean, we did a lot of work in Spain and Portugal.
I've seen that.
And there's some brilliant barbers out there. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but the guys that actually came to the presentation, you're like, wow, you know, really these guys are already fantastic.
There's a talent. It's like over in Russia. Have you been to Russia before?
Russian, we had a guy called Clipper Killer come over to two of our shows. Very, very creative guy.
Yeah.
But if you follow our Instagram, we're actually following quite a lot of Russian barbers now and again.
The standard over there I think it's very underrated. Like, not a lot of people understand like how high the level is over in Russia.
One of the things I watch out for on my Instagram, I don't like photographs that are too processed. I don't mind people enhancing the picture. I think it's what you've got to do. It's like, say you're buying a pair of trainers off Nike. You look at a picture they've done. They've obviously enhanced the picture. You know,
of course. If there's a little scuff on the shoe, they have to get rid of it, of course.
But some of the people in Russia in particular, I notice a trend of overdoing it a little bit.
Okay,
and I think that's one thing that we veer away from a little bit. But But no doubt about it, the Russian standards, and the following a lot of the UK barbers, the following a lot of what's happening over here, but the standards gone through the roof.
Definitely. And I think in terms of standard as well, I think what done it for the UK massively. Number one, you have your people like your Josh LaMonica.
Fantastic.
Absolutely fantastic. But because I know you were the first person who started introducing American barbers to the UK, which I think just made the standard just blow up completely.
Yeah, I mean, we follow a lot of the American barbers. They actually are impressed with the UK cutting and styling. And the first person we brought over was Julius Caesar.
Julius, a fantastic guy. I done a workshop with him a few years back.
What a character. He's brilliant. He's been over with us 3 times. So he came over and did our Manchester show. Then he came over to London. And when we did London, we had Famos, a guy from Canada.
I know Famos,
He brought his mate Chink over as well.
Chink is a good barber as well.
We then had another guy who was actually, for me, the next level was Diego. Have you not followed Diego? DGAF, which stands for Don't Give a
he doesn't, does he?
Sophie Pock, Stay Gold. She's got 400,000 followers.
She works with Babyliss, doesn't she?
Yes, but I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't say they're better than UK barbers. They just have a different
way of cutting, different vibe.
And again, for us, we try to make it inclusive. When we put Leah on stage and Jen Wince and people like that, we wanted to get as many females involved as we can. We don't look at it as female and male. We wanted to sort of get everybody to know the welcome. And
do you think there's predominantly more males than females who do end up there?
There is, but you know what? You get a bit of hate on these social media things.
Really?
And we put some pictures out of our Liverpool show, and we had a couple of people coming on going, why is there no women there? Well, there was loads of women there.
Yeah.
The problem I've got a little bit is I've not got enough females approaching me to be on the stage. So I would love to welcome anybody.
Any females who want to get on the Barber Bash stage?
That's it, baby. Well, Jen Wince is fantastic. We're doing some work with her. Hayden's fantastic. There's other people like Bridie Joe who we see. But I mean, listen, the door's always open. You know?
And that's what I love about you guys as well. You literally open it to anyone who wants to progress.
I mean, just touching on, there's a girl called Kerry Nobbs, I think her name is, doing a lot to do with this non-binary, gender, non-specific gender. Everybody's welcome when we do a show. You know, so
as long as they can cut hair, they're good at what they do and they have passion.
Hair has no gender. I think that is one of the things that she promotes.
I like that.
And I totally agree with that. You know,
it doesn't lie. I've seen people come up and do women's haircuts on stages.
Why not? At the end of the day, I never got my head around that, because when we worked with Score and when Score launched, they came from Rotterdam.
Yeah,
fantastic. But they were doing this. We don't have females in the barber shop. And again, my other friend John Barber, who has Barber in Manchester, Liverpool. It was no females welcome. Having said that, what makes me laugh now is
he's got females working for him now, hasn't he? Yeah.
Listen, when you're running an academy and somebody's going to pay you 1,500 quid to come on a course, you're not going to say no.
Exactly.
But again, it's mental in my opinion. At the end of the day, if somebody's going to pay me 25 quid to cut the hair, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter whether they're boy or girl.
Hamsters, dogs, whatever you want.
As long as they can cut hair, that's all that matters.
Throw me a poodle, whatever. You know what I mean?
Throw me a cow, let it chew the top off.
Listen, just put your money in the till, that's it. I'm cutting.
And do you know what? That's what I like about how the barbering industry has gone, because you do see a lot of females now. And sometimes a lot of females are actually better than men.
Why not? Yeah, why not? In fact, even really, there is a debate, and I was talking to Hayden about it. They're just barbers. It's not even female or male. Exactly.
They're just barbers.
Barbers. That's
as long as they can come in and they can cut hair.
That's it. That's it.
I respect that. One thing that I did want to ask you as well, because for me, I've been cutting hair for nearly 7 years now. I've never really heard of a lot of shows like Great British Barber Bash and Salons International, etc. For me, it just seems like Great British Barber Bash is one of the main events. I wanted to ask you, did you have any competitors, or is there any competitors?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, what it is there's always somebody going to try and do what you do. We did have a guy in Ireland who sort of thought he was going to do one, and Yeah, so the team, we had Mark Shirley doing the video and the photography. So again, that created a really good image for us. We also had a guy, Great Rice, who does all the artwork for promotion.
Really?
My wife, who used to work in a bank, and she is full-time working with the Barber Bash. She does all like the logistics.
Has Nikki ever cut hair before or anything?
No, she worked in the bank and all that jazz. So basically there's a team of people doing it. So people do sort of have a go at doing a show, and they think you just rent a room or something and get some barbers together, but there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, I wake up in the middle of the night, 4 a.m, go to the loo, and I'm thinking about something.
Yeah,
so
that needs to be done, logistics.
An obsessive, really, like me. But show-wise, nobody's really done what we do, which is like the venues. Like we use a venue called Content in Liverpool. We've got this great new venue in Glasgow called Bad. We've got a great one in London called the Oval Space. Most other shows are what I call expos, so they are focused on selling these exhibitor spaces, and they'll have guys on stage, but again it does tend to veer back to like the old familiar faces. No disrespect to them, but that's not what you want to do. We want something a bit urban, a bit raw, in a cool place, somewhere where you want to go, even if you weren't seeing a barber show.
Because I know a lot of people, they're not even barbers, and I'll speak to them when I'm at the Barber Bash, and they're like, no, I'm not even a barber, but my mate is, so I've just come with him, but I love it. One
of my favourite stories is a mate of mine who's become quite a good friend. He came to the Barber Bash at that place, Drygate, the first one I thought was really getting it right. And he was in the fashion industry, and he came to the show. Now he's got a shop called 33rd. He went to Alan Beak for 6 months training, paid him a load of dough. Then he opened a barber shop charging more than Alan was charging. Because Aberdeen's
is this in the same area?
Aberdeen's a bit like that. And so he's up in Aberdeen, but Aberdeen's quite an affluent area. There's a lot of oil up there and stuff. So Andy, my mate there, has got this lovely barber shop. He's got 5 barbers now working for him. And
is he cutting hair at all?
He cuts hair, very, very high standard, and it all started because he came to Barber Bash, and I'm really proud of that.
That's another reason why I love it so much, because it does really start people's careers off, and it starts their career off in the right direction, because you can go to some colleges and academies, etc. It's churn them in, churn them out, churn them in, churn them out. I think when you start off with somewhere like the Barber Bash, it shows you the levels, and it, like, you're always going to be aspiring, right? I want to be like Ryan Cullen. I want to be like Alan Beak.
And also, can I also say that, you know, sometimes you get these people who go, well, what's the matter with what I do? Listen, if you're charging a tenner for a cut or 15 quid for a cut, and you want to do what you've been doing for the last 15 years, good on you.
So be it,
If you're happy and you're paying your bills and you're paying your living, it is a job. But we just do it our way, and we have, you know, we like what we do. But sometimes we get a bit of animosity out of some old school guys who'll go, you know, well, you're sort of putting us down because you're doing all this fancy stuff.
Really?
Well, no. We're just doing our thing. You know, people sometimes get a little offended. I was in Spain and I was with these barbers and they said, we charge 20 quid, 25 quid a haircut. And this guy got upset because he said, well, I only charge €5 a haircut. But it's what suits you. If you're doing that and you're paying your bills, you're paying for your shop rent or whatever, you know.
I think it just boils down to, for some people it's a job, for some people it's a career path, and it's what you want to get out of it as well, because like you say, I know barbers who go into their barber shop and they cut hair, they charge £10-15 for a haircut, go home and they're happy, they're not interested in events and precision cutting, but that's why I like what you guys do so much, because it just shows that other element and creates so many opportunities for people. Right, there is a different way, and you don't have to be a barber behind a chair.
But that's it. But I went mad at one guy once. We did this college show, and he said, if your boss isn't allowing you 45 minutes on a haircut and you're not charging £20 plus, you're in the wrong place. And I afterwards said, you shouldn't say that, because the people in the audience there, who've got great businesses charging a tenner for a cut, who do 20-minute haircuts or 20, whatever they want to do. But just because what you do suits you
doesn't mean it's wrong.
You should push it on other people. It's horses for courses, isn't it?
Exactly. And it depends what you want out of your career as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that was me for the first 3-4 years. I was a barber. I went to the shop, made my money, went home, and that was it. and it just brings me back to that.
You and what stage of your life you're at. So we should never think that what we do is the only way to do it.
Exactly, because it's not. There's so many different ways, and like you say, your bills need to be paid at the end of the day as well. If you are doing £10 haircuts and smashing them out in 10 minutes, exactly. What does it take to work alongside you guys like Barber Bash, and what you do with your events?
Yeah, we're always looking for new talent. The one thing I would always say to you is that we Alan Beak actually said it to me first. No egos, no attitude. We do work with people. We've all got a bit of an ego.
Everyone does.
We like to sort of show off a little bit.
And you want to feel good about yourself as well.
Yeah, it's important for us, especially if we're travelling.
Yeah.
And we're doing shows, that we work with people who get on with people, just are nice people. I know it sounds a bit cliche or corny, but especially if you're travelling in workshops, you're travelling to Ireland, you want to be with people who've got nice manners and behave themselves when they're
of course. Away. You don't want them to be disrespectful.
What we always do, we look out for people who just reach out to us. So if somebody reaches out and says, hey Gary, I'd love to be at that show, I normally flag the message on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I've got my phone's going, what's it going again?
So is mine. My phone's
and we
going
just try and always get back to and include as many people as we can. But again, have the right attitude. I noticed, funnily enough, tell you this funny story. Today, somebody wrote a shitty comment on something. There was a little video that I did at the weekend of Ollie Foster. I did a video of Sakura Scissors because they sponsor us.
It's fantastic scissors. I still use Sakura.
Some guy wrote something, waste of time, guys showing off, whatever he wrote. And what made me laugh was I scrolled back and 3 messages before, he asked me could he be involved in the Barber Bash. Well,
really?
Mate, you're not going to get involved. You write shitty comments on things, you know what I mean? So just remember when you've had that bottle and a half of wine or whatever else you've done, don't start messaging, putting comments on things.
Because people can be quite compulsive with stuff like that as well. Because we get it all the time. Because it's no secret we have an 8 weeks course, and we've got we've literally got barbers.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, they say there's no way it can be done in 8 weeks. It can, as long as the individual literally commits themselves 100%.
Yeah.
If you come in, you're fascinated with it, you're going to events, you're watching videos in your spare time, you come in, you take everything you've been taught on board and you put it into practice, of course you can do it.
But do you, when you see people advertising, teaching people to drive, do they say, I'm going to teach you to be an expert driver? No, they don't. They're teaching you how to learn to drive, and then after that, you'll then flourish.
Exactly.
I get so many, or every now and again, we do these 1-day courses or 2-day courses to advance your skills for fully trained hairdresser barbers. I get these idiots who don't read the advert, and they
can't be a barber in 2 days.
How can you learn how to be a barber in a day? And you want to write back, you idiot, you've not read the advert. There's a link on it that explains everything to you. But
do you reply to them comments?
No, because it's not worth my time. It's not worth my time. I can't say I don't get annoyed. I do get annoyed.
You do?
You think you
because it's your product as well.
I won't even say the words, but what a dipstick, you know what I mean? And also, would I go onto his business page and say, you're shit, your pictures are shit, you've got a shit sign, you charge
shit salon, shit haircuts.
I wouldn't do that because it's a business now. Respect the fact it's a business. And I'm advertising my business. You're writing silly things when you had your bottle of cheap Lambrusco from Aldi. Do you know what I mean? But I've learned now, don't even say it, just delete it because it's so stupid.
I think the bigger your business grows as well, like naturally you're going to get that hate. It's just a part of growing a business, whether you cut out for it, or if you're not.
Well, I can only imagine what you get with the academy, because you'll get those
all the time
who are like a bit spiteful, a bit jealous probably. You've got a lovely place here, so they'll say, you can't teach a barber in 8 weeks. No, I'm not saying that you can have the same experience as somebody
like me, like myself.
I started hairdressing in 1986, I've got 30 odd years. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I'm going to get you well on your way.
Exactly.
And I'm going to give you the tools that you can grow with, you know?
Exactly. And as long as you put that into work, we'll help you go into work if you need it.
It's like Gordon Ramsay does chefing courses, but you're not going to teach a chef.
You're not going to be on Gordon Ramsay's level.
But, you know, we've all got to start somewhere, and all these things are useful in their own way, you know?
I remember I had one guy, I can't forget his name, but he rang me up, pretending to be someone interested in the course.
What would you be asked?
He's got a shop, I forget where it is, but I had a chat with him, then wrapping up the conversation, and it turns out he goes to me, yeah, I've been cutting hair for 20 years. Have you got an NVQ? Can you teach? Your barbers probably don't have NVQs. I don't know how you can do it in 8 weeks. It's done. I've been training for 20 years and I'm still learning every day. And I turned around and said to him, I'm like, mate, of course you're still learning every day. Our students are going to be learning every single day after they leave the course. They come in, they work hard, we give them...
So would you prefer them not to do anything then? Should they just sit at home?
Where are they going to start?
Sit home and watch Jeremy Kyle or Judge Rinder and don't bother starting.
Exactly, because no one's ever going to be the best barber in 8 weeks. They're going to start and then they're going to progress.
Just like we used the analogy before of learning to drive. You learn to drive and then you really start to learn after you finish the course. The same with being a chef, the same with being a mechanic, the same with being anything, you know?
Yeah, no one's going to teach you how to actually run a barbershop until you get the experience.
I just also tell you, because I went through it, all that bullshit about, I did a 2-year apprenticeship. No, you didn't. What you did, you stood there and you brushed up cut hair. And you went and got cups of tea, you went and got the sandwiches and you cleaned things. You didn't learn for 2 years. I worked in, when I did my training, it was a great place.
I like that point a lot.
It was a great place where I worked, but I did a model every 2 weeks and a week or something. Most of my learning, I actually went out and grabbed it myself.
That's what I done.
But all that bullshit about, I did a 2-year apprenticeship, nonsense, because they don't.
They don't. Honestly, they don't.
Very few places. Like Sassoon's was fantastic. Where if you were at Sassoon's, yes, you would stand with somebody, and they would force you to get models in. Yeah. But very few salons and barbershops like that. If you can honestly say that you do a model every day with your apprentice, good on you.
Yeah, and that's why we get a lot of people who have started in apprenticeships, because we get people who ring us up saying, oh yeah, I'm just going to do an apprenticeship. I'm like, okay, but I will probably see you in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Because I started as an apprentice, that's how I started, and my apprenticeship should have been a year. I managed to do it in 6 months, but what I was doing, I was literally out on the street corner, just telling for people, right, come on, all right, mate, your jacket looks good. How's your hair? Come on.
Come on, kids.
I'll cut your hair for you.
Those slacks look lovely on you.
But that's what I would do, and that's how I managed to become a barber, not a barber in 6 months.
Because you push yourself.
But it just goes back to the fact, like, I personally think if you're going to offer education as well, it's if you can provide the models, because it cuts out that time as well.
Models is always the thing. Isn't it?
Always the thing. Like, the amount of time you spend looking for models, you could be cutting a model's hair. Yeah. So that's what I think as well. Have you got any events coming up in the near future?
Well, we're busy next weekend. We're in Newcastle at Newcastle College. We're doing a 2-day workshop. Next year we're doing 1-day workshops all over the UK.
Fantastic.
But our big show is going to be Glasgow and then Manchester. So hopefully we're going to look Manchester in as well soon.
Hopefully we can get into Cambridge as well.
Yeah, Cambridge. Well, listen, we definitely want to do a workshop, because it's so funny, because we'll do something in Scotland, then we'll get asked by 3 or 4 places in Scotland to do something. Then we do Ireland again. That's really big for us. Yeah. The north of England is big for us, but we've never really done much down south. We're in Chelmsford soon. There's a great company called Electric Hairdressing, Mark Woolley.
I've never heard of him.
Well, we might be doing something with Mark Woolley. It's electric space in central London. But yeah, hopefully Cambridge.
Hopefully we can get something in the diary.
Yep, let's do it, baby. All right, mate.
And that's another episode of So You Want to Be a Barber.
Whoop, whoop.